Hello friends, welcome into another episode of 5v5 Live on Shot Callers eSports. Eric Kummel, joined by Mr. Mark Horner here for another episode. We're going to be previewing Week 2 of the LCS. Week 1 was pretty interesting, I'd say. It
was pretty hot. Week 1, opening week, right out of the gates, lots of hot action.
I love hot action. It's the best kind of action. We'll also go over some LCK action. The Telecom Wars resumed earlier today. SKT taking on KT Rolster, and patch 8.2. The notes were released yesterday. There's a lot of changes, a lot of nerfs to some broken stuff, and not some nerfs to some broken stuff.
Hey, my fellow ADCs, moment for our Vayne players. They took a hit. But hey, my fellow ADCs, Relic Shield, it's over. Enjoy the game once again.
Yeah, well, potentially.
Yeah, before you get stomped.
And we'll also be taking your questions as always, so make sure you're sending those in throughout the show. But let's get started in the LCK because Week 2 is already underway there. And as I mentioned, SKT taking on KT, and it was KT who came back in that third game. They were behind 7,000 gold, who came back and took this series. They dumpstered them in the first game, and SKT came back in that second one. Very back and forth series, very interesting.
It was an absolute must-watch series if you're a League of Legends fan, and the Telecom War almost always is. I can't really think back to a Telecom Wars series that was an absolute must-watch League of Legends. This one had it all from the very first game all the way to the third game. You even had the Faker quadra kill in game number 2. This one was a fantastic series to watch, and hey, KT Rolster gets their first ever win against SK Telecom with this roster. Pretty impressive stuff.
Which is pretty insane considering how many best of series they've had. But SKT looked like they were going to win that third game, and this was the big turnaround fight with Pawn eventually getting a triple kill. SKT just overstepped a little bit. This turns into a Baron. Then there was another big fight that KT won. But yeah, you were not expecting KT to win this game after SKT had gotten such a big lead in that third game. And yes, Faker did play amazing in that second game, definitely carried that one. And for much of game 3 was looking pretty solid, but a couple key mistakes are what actually cost them that game.
Now, even in best of 5s, you've been able to look at KT Rolster even taking, a 2-win head start, and you're able to look at them and go, are they gonna do it? Are they finally gonna do it? And then they collapsed and get reverse swept there. But this didn't happen. This time, they managed to come up big in game 3 when it mattered the most, getting the team fight victories against SKT, giving themselves the win, and it really pushes KT now into that top 3 type of position in Korea, where you can look at Kingzone and KSV as well, and possibly even Jin Air and Afrika Freaks pushing up there. And then you have SKT, who are kind of floundering right now, not really a lot of strength in the jungle position. Untara had a really rough performance in this series as well. So a lot of problems, I think, when you're looking at SKT early in the season so far.
Yeah, I mean, this is what Spring Split is for, is to determine what makeup of roster is going to be your best one moving forward. And SKT haven't found it yet. They had Wolf starting in a lot of these jungle spots. Blank came back in for this set. He looked okay. He didn't look great.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the problem is also like okay and not terrible. Well, that's fine, maybe in NA LCS, middle of the road, fine, okay. But this is SKT, this is LCK, this is the top League of Legends league here. You can't be performing like that, especially on a top tier team.
Yeah, I still don't think it's time to worry too much about SKT. I will say that Tal looked way better in that top lane than Untara did. I don't think Untara should start another game for the Spring Split. So maybe they have that top lane somewhat figured out. It's just that jungle, and it seems like they don't really want to put Wolf back in that support spot. Effort, again, started all 3 games for them against KT. So Blank, Wolf, that is Blossom going in. Who are they going to start in jungle? They're still figuring out some roster stuff, but it's only week 2 in spring, and even if SKT doesn't look great, I'm hard-pressed to see them winning spring, that's for sure. I'm expecting them to come back in summer, at the very worst.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe we'll be seeing SKT Teddy at that point, given how much he's popping off for Jin Air. But when you bring up Tal, I think that's a really interesting player to talk about, because he's someone who had that strong performance here, and I think that this is something that SKT can possibly build off of moving forward. Tal had the performance there on the Ornn where he was absolutely nailing the ultimate, hitting guys, getting that knock up, which was the key performing thing to initiate these team fights for SKT earlier in game number 3. So I think that is something to move forward with for SKT, a little bit of progress there, but still lots of work to be done this split for them.
Yeah, he also looks solid on that Vladimir. I will say Bang probably outperformed Deft overall in this series. He's gotten a lot of criticism lately on that SKT lineup, but he looked pretty solid. So it doesn't get easier for SKT either, by the way. They play Kingzone on Friday, so tough schedule, tough week 2 schedule.
And that's, if you're not used to it yet, Kingzone is Longzhu. Think about that. I know it's still taking some time, and you should have caught on by now.
Kingzone Dragon X.
But Kingzone Dragon X is a pretty weird name, so I want to make sure you're getting that. That's the former Longzhu squad there. That's going to be a really tough matchup for SKT to kind of try and pick their spirits back up against them.
Kingzone Dragon X sounds like an illegal energy drink that you can only get like on the black market.
It sounds like it would be what I would try to drink to be performing like Faker, and just I might die in a PC
too much caffeine that it's illegal. All right, patch 8.2, the notes came out the other day, and obviously the other main thing that was released was the new Swain gameplay and abilities footage. They're obviously reworking that champion. There's no more Beatrice.
Nope.
No more beautiful bird on the Rift. But the new Swain, he looks interesting. He's got a look that is pretty much Vladimir, I'm going to be honest.
He really just looks like, I don't know, in the Harry Potter series, he looks like Malfoy's father. That's all he does, with the blonde hair and this whole dark type of theme going on with him. But when you're watching his kit, yeah, he does kind of remind you of a Vladimir type of champion right now. But you and I were watching this today and this morning, and I'm looking at his Q ability and the range on it. Oh my word, that is some nasty stuff. This is a kind of a pretty cool rework to see, and I know that from what I've seen from the reaction on Twitter that there are quite a lot of top lane players and possibly even some junglers that are excited to see this Swain rework.
Yeah, I don't know about him being a jungler. I feel like he'll be a flex solo laner, but usually when these new champion spotlights come out, I'm immediately like, that's busted. That's going to be the best champion in the league. That's just my default response, but I actually didn't really get that with Swain. Maybe because you're not really seeing. It's hard to gauge what the numbers are actually going to be.
That's going to be a big difference maker, right?
Right, based on these, because even a lot of the gameplay footage, some of the times the guys are like 4 levels higher than the other guys they're playing against, and they're like 8-0-8, so it's like, okay, is that really a realistic interpretation of what this champion's going to be? But he looks interesting. I mean, I don't know if there's anything crazy, unique, or interesting about him.
It looked okay. I thought it was an interesting rework and kind of take on Swain's abilities from the past. But one thing that as you mentioned, that it doesn't really look too busted. I think the Q's range is a little big for what I expect from that type of an ability, but I think when you're looking at this doesn't have any type of feeling of the similar feelings that I thought when I saw Zoe's champion trailer, and I instantly thought all of this is busted. Didn't feel the same way about Swain's. Yeah,
so we'll see. I'm sure people will try fitting him in the meta in a couple different places, but probably top and mid, I'm saying.
That's where he'd be expected to go.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of other news, actually, out of patch 8.2. Some nerfs to some stuff that people are not fans of right now. Ezreal, Mystic Shot, getting toned down in the early game by like 15 damage.
I've been bullied by that short-haired blonde boy too many times. It's good to see that nerf.
He's got a beautiful dance, though. They're also nerfing Klepto, which, again, greatly affects Ezreal. You're getting less loot, and later on it's going to be worse on ranged champions. I think they said something like 15% less loot.
But that 15% less loot is kind of hard to gauge exactly that impact and what it's going to have on champions that use Kleptomancy, like Ezreal, Gangplank, Echo, Alawi, certain builds that way. We don't know exactly how it's going to affect it because of the RNG nature of Kleptomancy. So we don't know exactly how hard those nerfs are going to hit, but hey, some nerfs are coming.
Some nerfs are definitely coming. And more nerfs coming to some meta champions. Malzahar, less AP ratio on his Q, and a longer cooldown on his ult. I don't think that's enough to take him out of pro play.
No, and I don't, I have a hard time. I really don't like seeing Malzahar in pro play because I really think that this is a champion, and Riot nailed it in one of their previous patch notes saying Malzahar needs to hit more buttons to kill people. It's as simple as that. He's far too simple and easy, I feel, to get a type of impact on the Rift out of him. I think that more needs to be bringing into him from Riot.
Listen, at least before you had to press the pool and then his ult. Then they're just like, you know, let's combine that. Just make it one. It's too hard to press 2 buttons. And now he's forcing everyone to buy QSS as like their second item, which is insane. Vayne also getting some nerfs. Her attack speed per level going into late game. And the big hit is the AD bonus from her ult is, it's down like 30 at level 3. I think from 70 down to 40. So that's pretty big.
I don't think this is something that's going to like totally get rid of get rid of Vayne from people's playstyle right now in solo queue or anything like that. But I think this is definitely kind of the definitive, you know, you're not really going to see a lot more Vaynes in professional play when they get to patch 8.2.
Teddy's not happy. I'll tell you that. Teddy's not happy about this.
Teddy's going to have to carry on other things and get his, you know, huge CS advantage.
Yes. Teddy might also be happy, though, because it looks like Nunu's going to be coming back in the meta, which means Blood Boil is going to be spammed on him. Blood Boil is now going to be giving an AP ratio, AP bonus to Nunu and whoever he casts it on. And also his Q Consume is going to give him bonus magic damage on every auto attack. That sounds terrifying.
I'm not excited about this. Nunu is not a champion that I like to see on the other team or even on my team.
In the game, get him out.
I just don't like seeing, especially in the state that he was in before. But now with this one, he sounds like he is going to be not just powerful, but pretty darn busted. So watch out for Nunu.
Yeah, if I'm a pro jungler, I'm very upset about this. Poacher's Knife may be coming back, or whatever that smite is called. I don't even remember the name because no one buys it. Other big news, Sightstone, obviously this has been rumored for a while. It is out in 8.2. So now when you complete your quests from your support item, it automatically changes in to an upgraded version that has Sightstone built in. And you only start with 1 ward charge on it. And then once you go back to the fountain, it charges to the full 3 on a Sightstone. I'm pretty sure non-supports are going to be building this because they're already building the items.
Absolutely. I think that this is a change that is going to have a pretty big effect on how everybody reacts and how they're, you know, what their first buys are going to be and how they're working that into their build patterns.
Yeah, so that's definitely something to keep track of going forward. And the big one that a lot of people are talking about is the changing of minion aggro. So usually when you auto attack someone in lane, the minions are all going to smack your face. But now they're changing it so that single target spells also draw minion aggro. So Kassadin Q, Akali Q, Pantheon Q. You can't just spam harass that now without getting a little smackdown from the minions.
It's going to be great. A lot of times I've been hit with a Pantheon Q and thought, why aren't the minions now attacking him? And so this will be a nice answer for that one. But it's definitely going to change the way that you have to lane or maybe even attack certain champions. You know, someone like Cassiopeia is another one of these champions that's been hit with it. Her E ability is going to be the target of that one. So this is really going to change how things are going to react in lane.
Yeah, and that is definitely a big hit to Cassiopeia, obviously the most meta of the champions we mentioned. For Kassadin, I mean, you're probably just going to be even more passive in lane now and just strictly use that Q for last hitting, unless, you know, the minion wave's down or there's not many. But it's going to be much more situational when you actually want to use that to harass. It'll be interesting to see how big that does affect the laning phase, and I think it will. I think it will going forward, so that's something to look out. That's a big patch. 8.2, the second one of the season is already pretty massive.
Hey, big patch was needed right here. 8.1 left us in an interesting spot with Relic Shield and some other champions, so I'm very happy to see a pretty quick response with 8.2.
Stopwatch is still here, don't worry.
Did you know 60 times out of a possible 100 this weekend in the LCS, stopwatch.
That's right.
That's 60% of all
money.
Participants.
It's free
Craziness.
Money. It's free money to start with, as well as those boots. You like getting a free item.
I know some people don't like it. I like it. I like League of Stopwatch. I think it makes things a little bit more interesting.
You like level 3
level 3, level 6 area, kind of that zone when it turns on. Love it.
It's very interesting. We're going to get into the LCS preview for Week 2. We're going to look at some of the big matchups in EU and NA in just a minute. But before we do that, let's go back to Week 1 of the LCS with the eSports Network and Zareen, who was at the NA LCS studios, giving us a little bit of a behind-the-scenes look at Riot Studios.
Hi everyone, it's Swain from eSports Network. Shout out to Shot Callers. I'm here at the NA LCS studios for the first weekend of the spring split. Thank you Riot Games for having me at this prestigious and exciting event. Let's see what's going on. I love being at the Riot Games studios, and not just because of all the snacks made available for the press. It is such a privilege to be here alongside respected esports publications such as ESPN Esports, Blitz Esports, and Travis Gafford Esports. I actually enjoy watching the people watch other people play in the NA LCS. And I especially enjoy conducting completely 100% serious interviews with the pro players and staff who represent this region. I just also thought you should know that the bathrooms here play LoL music. One time, I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, but I went in and it was playing some epic Worlds music, which makes for an interesting bathroom experience. But most importantly, I love looking at all of this and basking in how far esports has come. Here's to a great 2018 LCS season, and I genuinely can't wait to see what the rest of the year holds for us.
Zorina, are you crying?
So Riot plays their World Championship music and their own composed music in their bathrooms. That sounds like brainwashing to me.
It's a little bit of brainwashing, but those songs are pretty awesome, man. You know, Ignite, Warriors, pretty good stuff.
You need that in the bathroom?
Hey, sometimes you need motivation, man. I don't know, I'm not
I don't
saying
need
where,
motivation
but
to
hey,
go to the bathroom.
You never know. I thought that was pretty cool. One thing I also wanted to see was, from what I've heard, the concessions. I heard the concessions are pretty good at the LCS arena, even better than the Overwatch League concessions. So that's something that League of Legends has got.
Don't stir up that drama. We're not getting into that. LCS Week 2, plenty of juicy matchups in both EU and NA. EU getting underway on Friday. And some of the key matchups. Listen, Vitality is the only 2-0 team after Week 1. So heading into Week 2, who do they get? Well, they're getting tested immediately. They're going to be playing guys like Fnatic and Misfits. If they go 2-0 again, wow. Fantastic.
Definitely. This is kind of the, you know, put up or shut up type of week. It's real early, and this is, again, a long way to go. But this is definitely going to give us that early, quick look at if Vitality is for real or not. These are teams that you're going to have to be able to beat at the top level in Europe if you're going to be this champion, and so that this is going to be a great preview for us.
Yeah, and another one I want to look at there, the Splice, Schalke. I'm not 100% sure yet whether or not Upset is coming back into the lineup for Schalke, but that's kind of showing teams that are maybe just outside that top 2, that 3 fighting for that spot. I know Splice did not look that good in Week 1.
No.
Looking for them to rebound and see what Schalke can be like at their full strength, or just more games as Vander on 80 carry, because that was amazing to watch.
I don't know, maybe we're going to, do you think we'll see the return of Boris once more?
That was an awkward situation.
Yeah.
So I hope Upset's back in the
I hope so too. But I think when you're talking about Splice, yeah, they didn't really show exactly what they wanted that first week. You know, they wanted to show that we are a team that will be in that top, you know, discussion for Europe as far as contending, and they didn't quite bring the gameplay to back up that. So looking this week against FC Schalke, who did look pretty strong in their week, I think that this is something that they can look forward to.
Yeah, and obviously we got G2 Fnatic to close out the weekend of the last game on Saturday. But just jumping back to Vitality, I mean, this is a team that I thought would maybe be a borderline playoff team fighting with, I don't know, teams like H2K for that final playoff spot. But they come guns a-blazing in Week 1. Obviously, they don't play any of the upper tier teams in EU. But I mean, they look pretty solid in Week 1. Jizuki has a fantastic LCS debut, and really 4 out of the 5 Giants guys look super solid. But the ultimate tests come in Week 2, and I wouldn't be surprised if they go 0-2.
I actually would be surprised. I think that this is a team that can pick up a victory against possibly Misfits. I think that that's where I'm looking for them to, you know, put it together, get Jizuki going in the mid lane, get some real good kill pressure. I think that that's where they're going to pick up a possible win this weekend. But when you're looking at that Fnatic matchup, that one is going to really be the toughest test for them moving into Week 2.
And now, to be fair, maybe they don't go 0-2. I do believe they could win. I almost think Fnatic, they have a better chance than Misfits. I think Misfits look better than Fnatic in Week 1. Reckless looked a bit out of sorts on that Fnatic squad. So yes, there's some hype on Vitality, but I think it's going to be brought back a bit here in Week 2 because they got tough matchups. I think pretty much any team in the league, if they're playing Misfits and Fnatic, they'd be hard-pressed to go 2-0.
Yeah, but I mean, they also have a very established veteran coach in Yamato Cannon there, and I'm hoping that his experience and how he was able to help Splice rise up the ranks and make it to Worlds as fast as they did in that season, I think that this will be something that he can possibly use that experience to help his players here stay calm and stay motivated on this winning path.
Yeah, and something we mentioned about week 1 is just the inherent synergy that they have with 4/5 of Giant on that roster. When everyone else is looking at a totally different squad, they still have so many guys.
Yeah, even in EU, even in NA as well, when you're watching it, it was quite noticeable some of these teams really haven't had time to work together. And that ranges from, you know, teams going on Korean boot camps like Team Liquid in North America, and then you have TSM, who had almost less than a week working all together, right? So when you're looking at these type of things, I think that when you're talking about vitality and how much time that they've all spent together, it really is a benefit for them. But that's something that could be slipping as you're moving into these later weeks, as everyone else in Europe starts to get a little bit more familiar with each other's play styles.
Yeah, absolutely. And another team, Fnatic, least changes in the league coming into this split. And, you know, I, as well as many other people, kind of had them as the favorites, the preseason favorites coming into the split, but they didn't look that great in week 1.
No, a pretty rough week from Fnatic. Not exactly what you wanted to see. SOAS had a pretty strong week. Other than that, not really a lot to write home about if you're a Fnatic's fan. I think that you should be really expecting a bit of a step up here now that you're into the second week of action.
Yeah, and I will say that Caps was actually pretty fantastic in week 1. He had pretty much the best numbers across the board among all mid laners, despite not going 2-0. But just kind of their macro play around the map did not seem to be very solid. Maybe that has to do with implementing Hylissang into the shot calling role, or where he fits in that role. But Reckless in general just looked way off in both of their games. Not to the level that we saw in the second week of Worlds and for much of 2017 summer. Maybe that's having a new bot lane partner down there, but I mean, even on champions that he's comfortable with, that we've seen him dominate on, like Xayah and Sivir, he didn't look quite there. So I expect him to get back on track in week 2, and I still think Fnatic's going to be a top 2, top 3 seed.
Yeah, and nothing to take away from Mini Truepax, but this could be a very good matchup for Reckless to kind of get things going for him, right? You know, prey upon the rookie, the new guy, get some really good kills in there, pad up your stats. This could be the one where we see Reckless get a little bit of a fiery bounce back in this spring split. And
then the second game of that week is against the fellow Swede AD carry, who Perk said is going to be far and away the best Swedish AD carry in EU, which was very clearly a directed shot at Reckless. Talking about that G2 squad, they have that first debut game against Misfits, and they looked pretty good in that game. It was back and forth for a bit, but eventually they just completely took over. Perks was an absolute animal in that game, flame horizoning Senkux at like 26 minutes.
That CS was absolutely bonkers. I told every single one of my friends that plays Rise to watch that game and just say, look, this is how you're going to CS. This is how you're going to farm. I want you to be this strong.
Raptors.
Yeah, I want you to be this strong in all of my games. It was incredible stuff. They didn't obviously have the best of weeks that you would have expected from G2, but I think it was definitely a solid foundation for this roster that's been put together to move forward and to work together with what they've seen and what they've shown on the Rift and how they can improve upon that.
Yeah, and obviously the loss to Roccat, which again, they seem to do at least once a split.
It's their kryptonite, it happens.
It's their kryptonite, it's what happens. Roccat are the King Slayers, as the commentators love to say so often, pretty much whenever they play them. But I mean, despite even going 1-1, I think G2 is still a pretty terrifying team to go against. Even with 4 new guys, that Misfits game was proof that they're still kind of the team you have to go through in EU, even though it is early on. And yeah, this week they've got Fnatic. That's going to be a very interesting match. We'll see what kind of strength these guys are going into. As I mentioned, that is the last game of the week, so we'll see how they perform in their opening games. But right now, I think G2 is looking better than Fnatic.
Yeah, I think that's the way that you have to lean towards in this one. But nonetheless, G2 versus Fnatic to round out the week. What an exciting week 2 in European LCS.
Yeah, plenty of good games as well. Schalke, we'll just see. I want to know if Upset's playing. That's the main thing I want to know.
I would like to see him playing as well.
Yes.
Kind of a nice little thing about Schalke, though, is I'm sure most are aware, some might not be, that there's also a football or a soccer club, Schalke, and at their stadium that seats about over 70,000 people. In the middle of one of their games this weekend, they took time to announce the results of their League of Legends team. Pretty cool stuff to see a real, European League, Bundesliga soccer team talking about League of Legends in the middle of their game. Pretty cool stuff.
I'm sure 99% of the fans were very confused as to
hey,
what this update was.
That 1% was sitting there and going, hey,
Woo! That's what they were doing.
this Boris guy, I know who he is.
Wow, he looks pretty solid. But yeah, Schalke got a pretty diehard fan base already, despite not even being in the LCS for very long. I know they were there before, but they got a good fan base going forward. Let's get to these NA matchups because EU is pretty good, but the NA matchups are pretty insane. You got 4 2-0 teams coming in to next week. And look at that. A lot of them are playing each other. Cloud9, Echo Fox, both 2-0. 100 Thieves, Liquid, both 2-0. So it's going to be... Can any of these teams really go 4-0? I don't know.
It's going to be a tough one to ask for. I think if you're really thinking who is going to have the chance, for me, it has to be Echo Fox. Strangely enough, I'm really thinking...
It's a tough week,
and
man.
If you told me this before, I would never have been thinking that Echo Fox would be 4-0 at come week 2. But I think that this is their chance. I think that you have a Cloud9 team, which has shown that they are strong. They're what I would probably put as the 3rd team in North America coming out of week number 1. And I think that when you look at Echo Fox and their roster, when we were talking about them before, our biggest concern wasn't that they didn't have talent, but was whether that talent was ever going to work together and how long they were going to work together. Well, we've seen right out of the gates that it is working. They're all very well synergized together, and they're all cooperating on the rip, creating these long chase down plays and getting the kills. Right here in this clip, actually, you're not hearing it right now, but the comms that they have, it was great communication by them, calling out the summoner spells that were missing, how to engage on these dives. Really well done by Echo Fox, something that I think that they can take into this week 2 and propel them to this, where then they take on their second matchup is going to be against TSM, someone who I expect to be improved this week, get a better read on the meta, but I still think Echo Fox has a chance to jump on them this early in the split and get out to that 4-0 start.
Whew, I mean, that would be quite a statement by them if they knock off Cloud9 and TSM.
You're seeing SKT Huni here, man.
Undefeated. Listen, Huni is... for the overreaction in the first week of the day. Obviously, he's the best top laner in NA. He showcased that in week 1. Him and Someday were absolutely dumpstering people. But I mean, yeah, this Echo Fox team did have a much better start and looked super solid, better than I was expecting. But we'll see how they go against some of these top tier competitions. I definitely think they're capable of taking one of these games, maybe 2. But I mean, those are tough matchups. I see them probably going 3-1. I can't see TSM going 0-2 again.
It's really hard to believe that. 0-2, you think TSM's going to lose to Optic?
No,
the Echo Fox match?
I think TSM will probably win both games this week, or at worst go 1-1, win that Optic game and lose out to Echo Fox. I feel like Liquid has the best chance of going 2-0 heading into this week, but really for any of these teams it's going to be tough because they're almost all playing each other. But Liquid gets underway against 100 Thieves, I think, is their first game. And I mean, Liquid struggled a little bit against Optic, but I feel like even when they were behind or it was pretty even, you were like, I mean, I feel like Liquid's going to win this game. You just have that feeling, and you know that that's a solid team.
Yeah, for the most part, when you were watching how Liquid was moving around the map, you felt pretty confident moving into any zone, any team fight, that Liquid was going to be the ones coming out on top. I think there was maybe only one real moment that I could look back in that Optic game, maybe that team fight where Arrow wasn't quite there yet for Optic, that I thought, hey, maybe that if Arrow was there, maybe they turned that around. Other than that, I didn't see any other real team fights that Team Liquid didn't look like they had the upper hand throughout and come out on top. Team Liquid is a very impressive team, and you can tell that synergy and that cooperation that they built during that Korean boot camp before everyone else had started to work together has really paid off for them, and it's really shown so far this early split.
Yeah, and it helps that they already had a bunch of synergy with 4 of the 5 guys having played together before in some capacity. But yeah, their macro game against Optic and that game-winning flank that they had with double lift flashing over of all people to kind of set up that flank. They just there was no panic even when it was a close game or they were slightly behind against Optic. Their team fighting seemed super solid. And I mean, this is early on, very early on, the team to beat in NA. And I don't know if they will go 2-0. I feel like they'll probably go 1-1 again. It's tough competition. I can't see any teams really getting that many 2-0 weeks going forward.
It's definitely going to be interesting, and I think that one of the things that might propel Team Liquid, if they're possibly going to get to this 4-0 position, is going to be Doublelift. You know, their AD carry star has really shown up here early so far in the spring split. Very motivated performances from him, and he's one of actually only a handful of players that still has not died yet. So this is a guy that I can see really carrying Team Liquid to a 2-0 week possibly.
Bjergsen also hasn't died.
Yeah, but hold on.
0-2.
Doublelift has not been flamed out by the Reddit community,
Oh,
okay? And also Doublelift hasn't played Xerath, so there's that.
He should try it. 80 carry Xerath. I've played a few times.
That's
it's not bad.
It's a lot of poke in the bot lane.
Yeah, it's not bad. The other 2-0 teams, Cloud9 and 100 Thieves. 100 Thieves we haven't talked about. They struggled against Optic in that opening week, and you were like, oh boy, maybe 100 Thieves aren't that solid. But then that second game against CLG, they looked very dominant, and they camped bottom lane. They got Cody Sun and Aframo ahead, and they really just snowballed out of that bottom lane. They got the first turret down there. They got 2 dragons, and I think they got lucky. They were 2 infernal dragons. So they look pretty solid, actually.
I've been really impressed with what I've seen from 100 Thieves. As you mentioned, that first game against Optic, I was a little bit worried because I was someone who came into this season thinking 100 Thieves really can show us something and really possibly be a special team to show the talent that they have. But that first game against Optic, I had a little bit of concerns. They weren't, totally crushing a team that I figured would be lower down the list. But then, yeah, absolutely. That game against CLG was what I really wanted to see see from 100 Thieves. They were really working together, really synergized well. That bot lane of Cody Sun and Aframo, I really think has the potential to grow a lot stronger. And then when you talk about the communication on this team, it's only going to get better. Sunday has really committed himself to learning the English language, and you can see that improve throughout the team's communications, and something that really, when you look at his performance and you see all the amazing plays he makes, wow, that's great, those plays, and his communication and shot calling skills are only going to get better. I think that this is a team to really be investing in. I think that this is the team. I want to buy in on 100 Thieves.
You want to spend $100
$100 on 100 Thieves?
$100 on 100 Thieves?
No, but I would actually.
100 pennies.
But I would spend $100 on one of those really cool baseball jersey and red camo sweater combos. I want one of those.
Not sold on the baseball jerseys.
See, we've talked about this, and I think I don't know, the color scheme might not work with the baseball jerseys, but I think the baseball jerseys have worked in the past. Afrika Freaks rocked them before with the white and blue pinstripes. I like it. Nate Shot, hit me up.
Yeah, we'll throw one on Daphne over there if you send one in. Even if I don't like the baseball jerseys, Daphne will love them. There's some 0-4 teams. By the way, send in your questions. We will be answering them soon, but before we do that, I want to talk about some of these 0-2 teams, and do they have the potential to go 0-4? TSM will not go 0-4. That'd be crazy.
Reddit would shut down if TSM goes 0-4. That just would not be good. Oh, man.
I will say, though, some of the other 0-2 teams, you got Optic, you got Golden Guardians. Optic, who TSM plays, they went 0-2, but they were in both of their games against some tough competition. 100 Thieves, we mentioned, 65-minute game, oh my goodness. And then against Team Liquid, they put up a pretty solid showing against them. And I don't think they're going to go 0-2 this week again. They got TSM, as I mentioned, and they're playing FlyQuest. I think they're going to get a win against FlyQuest, even though I know FlyQuest beat TSM. I was pleasantly surprised with Optic. Power of Evil looked great, which I kind of expected him to perform well, but I was really impressed by Arrow. He was much more the 2017 spring Arrow, more so than summer.
Yeah, Arrow looked a lot better, more improved. He got out of the laning phase a little bit earlier and got into these team fights where, again, he seems to be able to really shine in the team fights, is where he finds his absolute max value. But for Optic, this is a team that has talked about in the past that, you know what, we know where everyone's really ranking us. We know we're not coming in with a lot of hype together. But there's one thing that we will commit to more than any other team is that we are going to try and work our hardest and outwork other teams. And that seems to be the commitment that these guys are making. Acadian says that he will not be streaming whatsoever this spring under that type of focus and dedication to the team. Whether that results in avoiding the 0-4 start, I don't know, but we'll see. I think that Optic does have a chance to make it out of this week without, dropping to that dreaded 0-4, and I don't know any type of reality where TSM could find their way down there. So unfortunately, looks like it's going to be the Golden Guardians, I find, that stay down there.
Yeah, if it's anyone, I think it will be the Golden Guardians. I mean, they were in that game against Cloud9 for a little bit.
They had bright moments. There were some bright spots, some good moments, some good plays.
Well,
just not enough.
You pick Zoe and you're going to have some bright moments on that Golden Guardian squad. But I mean, their first game against Clutch, they got pretty destroyed. And the fact that Clutch got absolutely bodied by Echo Fox in that game too, I don't know if that really speaks to the strength of the Guardians, but they don't look super solid. They're playing FlyQuest again, and CLG, CLG, another team I don't see going 0-2 again, because they were in both of their games as well, and they had tough matchups, so I expect CLG to beat the Guardians, and FlyQuest, I think, is better than Golden Guardians.
I definitely think that as well. I think there is some potential for the Golden Guardians to improve and become better as the split goes on, but I think that one of the things that you really do need to look at with the Golden Guardians is that they just don't work. You're watching the rest of these games and everyone else seems to be in it at almost a certain point. Maybe aside from TSM against Team Liquid and what was the shortest...
they weren't in that game.
What was the shortest match of the week? No. Yeah. But other than that, Golden Guardians hasn't really had anything going for them. And other teams have at least been able to generate that at certain moments in their own matches. That's why I feel so down on the Golden Guardians.
Yeah, and this was all a trick question. The team that's probably going to go 0-2 this week is the Unicorns of Love.
All the way on the other side of the pond.
All the way over in EU. They're playing Schalke and Roccat this week, which isn't a crazy schedule.
No.
But they look bad in week 1. I've seen these other teams didn't look great in NA, Guardians, and, well, really just Guardians, and TSM. They didn't look good.
No.
UOL looked bad.
Right, and I mean, and the thing is, like, even with TSM, you can look at them and say, hey, you know what? There's a light on the end at the end of the tunnel here. They're going to be getting better. There's going to be some synergy problems early, but hey, Mithy, Sven, Mike Young, there's no way we can be bad like that. There's talent there. They're going to get better. Unicorns of Love, I don't know, guys. There's not a lot of hope there. I don't know how much better it's going to get. And yeah, this is a week that isn't really the toughest on paper by any stretch. But it's not really easy either. You're looking at Schalke as a good team and has a lot of upside to them. And then even Roccat coming in clutch with the win against G2. The Kingslayers that they are, do they carry that momentum and play style into their match against Unicorns of Love, possibly getting another win and keeping Unicorns down at 0-4? We'll have to see.
Yeah, well, I expect EU to be similar where you're looking at like 8 1-1 teams. I don't know if... There's some tough matchups this week, so I don't see even the top-tier teams like G2, Misfits, Fnatic, Schalke going 2-0 because there's tough competition in EU. But in NA, teams like TSM and CLG, I'd be surprised if they went 0-2 again.
Yeah,
I would be surprised.
I would be very shocked.
I'd have to eat my words on our next show.
That wouldn't be the first time.
No. Let's get to some questions. Everybody's favorite time of day. Everybody's favorite time of day. Hey, shot callers. Long-time watcher, first-time caller. Matt Kotsopoulos, a.k.a. Mathos. Anyone ever heard of him? Shout-outs to Mathos. I'm a fan of you. Do you feel that Faker can drag this garbage tier roster to Worlds on his back this year?
Yikes.
Or is it too much for even his greatness?
That's some shots fired at the rest of the SKT roster.
You got to say, some of the mistakes he made in that third game, I feel like it's because he feels like he's got to make the play. He's got to have the game-winning moment because there's that added pressure on him to be the main shot caller or playmaker on this squad. So it might be hampering him a little.
I think you can definitely say that it's hampering him. This is something when you're watching Faker play, is that, there's so much that he can do, but if he's being, tied down to having to manage all sorts of other responsibilities that are usually outletted to other roles on the team because of the way that this roster works, then that's really taking away from the capabilities that Faker has on impacting the game to the level that he is truly capable of as the unkillable demon god that we know that he is. I think that what Faker can do is absolutely drag this team to playoffs. What he can do from that point onwards, I don't know. I can't guarantee anything past that with the rest of this team. But there still is talent there. I still have hope for Bang to really make an impact in the bot lane. And he has in certain games.
Bang was good in this series against KT. I think he outperformed Deft.
I don't think that you can really fault him necessarily as a roster player for SKT on what's been going wrong and why they haven't looked as spectacular as the expectation is for SKT. I don't think that Faker can truly drag this team across the finish line of the first place championship with how strong the rest of Korea is. But getting to the playoffs, I think, should not be out of the question for their roster like this. And again, it's very early.
If they continue to struggle and roster swap all over the place come spring, I think you'll see a pretty big overhaul heading into summer. And then I definitely think that Faker has the potential and the skill set, and he'll have new players to come in and get them to Worlds. Maybe not as that top seed, but maybe through the gauntlet or something like that.
Get Faker some broccoli. He eats all that broccoli again. Faker will be the MVP. No problem.
Well, I eat a lot of broccoli. I'm not the MVP.
You're not Faker.
That's true. I wouldn't underestimate Mini True Packs. I personally think he is looking to be the next Sven competing with Upset.
Possible.
He's good.
Mini True Packs is the guy that I picked to be the rookie of the split over in Europe right now. I just think that when I talk about him, and I think that he does have a lot of skill, and he's shown it. He's had good performances to start the spring split. I just think that what you might be getting at is when I talked about how I think that Reckless can take advantage of the rookie, and I think that that's something that I think all veteran players should be able to do in a matchup against someone who is less experienced, even with a possible skill gap that might be closer than other matchups against a rookie that Reckless might have faced in his career. I just think that this could be the matchup, maybe the inexperience, a way for Reckless to get that leg up and find a good performance to start his spring.
Yeah, I mean, the young talent in EU, we've talked about, we've highlighted. It's a lot coming up this, but there are a couple AD carries. Throw Sheriff's name in there too, and they all look pretty solid. A couple Echo Fox questions. Can Echo Fox stay this good? I can see Echo Fox winning this split if they keep playing as they are. However, if they don't, then rip.
Yeah, you know what?
R.I.P.
This is what I want to see come week 7 or 8, right? Around that time, when Echo Fox has really had their first bad week, whether that's a 1-1, 0-2, whatever happens, they have a huge throw. I want to see them have a really bad week.
So they can rebound. So they can rebound,
because that's the important part. We need to see the mentality of this roster, because all the talent is there. We know about the talent of this team, but it's a question of whether they're all going to cooperate, work together, how well they can synergize. And so far, thumbs up, it's all looking good. But after that bad week, is it still going to be there, right? Are they still going to be willing to work on these things together? We'll have to see. That is going to be my big question mark for Echo Fox.
Yeah, it's easy to be a good and happy teammate when you're winning. It's when you're losing and you have to maybe go over those VODs, go over your mistakes. How are you going to confront a teammate and say, hey, man, maybe you should have done this differently? Yeah, or you say, you suck. Yeah, Why'd you do that?
How's it going to happen when Huni, week 6 gets the Dyrus treatment for the first couple times and then goes, hey, Dardoch, where were you, buddy? And then what's going to happen with Dardoch, right?
Dardoch says, you couldn't even win the world championship, bro. The only guy on SKT to ever lose.
Oh, that's shots. Hey, Huni wanted a Yasuo skin, okay? That's why they lost.
That's fair.
But anyways, that's my thing. That this is all fictional in that sense. But these are the type of things and reputations that these players have built around how they could react to these type of situations. And I think that's what you really want to look for when you're talking about the potential of Echo Fox, because this roster has all the talent there. And if they can withstand these troubled waters that I'm sure will happen to any team during a split, then I think we'll really see a top-level team.
Absolutely. I can see TSM winning 2-0 next week. I've been following Sven and Mithy for at least 2 years, and I know how hard they practice after a loss. I think we'll see a different TSM next, for better or worse. I don't think it's going to be worse. Can it get worse? I don't think it can put up a worse performance.
I hope it can't get worse for North America's top organization.
Yeah.
I think that you definitely are going to see an improved performance from Sven and Mithy. These are two guys that really took it to heart and were quite hard on themselves for the poor performance of the team in general, and more so Mithy's poor performance. Sven was not necessarily an issue, got caught out with some bad positioning in one of the games, and then a couple little mistakes against Team Liquid. There were a lot of other mistakes against Team Liquid from TSM. I think when you're talking about Sven and Mithy, these are guys that are going to bounce back and have a top-level performance for the remainder of the split. Whether that happens this week or next week, not quite sure, but it will be happening soon, and I know we're going to see an improved performance from this bot lane.
Yeah, absolutely. As well as I think Mike Young will get more comfortable, although I'm not so sure this meta is suited towards him right now.
They're going to have to find something quick, right? Because it seems like they've made quite a different read than most teams have on the meta, going with the Shyvana pick, and as well as the Kha'Zix Xerath combo, which I can understand in theory, but was never going to work given the other team compositions.
Pulling in opposite direction when you're drafting stuff like that.
So I think that's where I would want to see more cohesion, the draft, to fit more with the meta, and I think that this is a good week for TSM to do that VOD review and catch up on that.
Coach Song, pressure's
on, big time.
Drafting. Taha TSB, you guys just hate Cloud9, don't you? You're always counting them out and just underestimating them by a long shot. Whoa. Cloud9 went 2-0. I think they're still going to be a top team this split, a top 3 team. I think we had them in like 3rd or 4th coming into this season, and people thought that Licorice was going to be this massive downgrade from Impact. Look at week 1. He performed great. He had some amazing Kled flanks in that game 2 against the Guardians, and even in game 1, he was getting camped. He was getting so camped by CLG, and he was one auto attack away from outplaying some of these ganks.
Again, I think one of the things, it's kind of funny that people think we don't like Cloud9. I think Cloud9 is a fantastic organization. And I think one of the amazing things with their roster right now, as you hit on, is the possibility for Licorice to be this home run hitter for them. When you're talking about, again, he's not a guy that I would ever really expect to be the carry on this team. You have Sneaky, you have Jensen. These are the guys that are your MVPs that will carry.
He played Gangplank and Kled.
But he played Gangplank and Kled, and that to me shows that Reaper and the rest of this team has the confidence in him to play the carries in the top lane, which is something that really is right now in strength in the meta, and as well to be that player to give them that another level. When you talked about SKT last year, one of the great things was like, wow, they can carry from Faker, they can carry from Bang, they can carry in the top lane with Uni, and that's what I think you're seeing with Cloud9 compared to other North American rosters, that Cloud9 kind of seems to have this depth that other teams don't have, where now I think you can really look at them and say, you know what, any of these lanes can really step up and be big for Cloud9. And that is something I would be worried about if I'm an opposing team.
Yeah, absolutely. And even in some of these mic checks, you heard Licorice was actually calling out a lot of targets and calling out, just sharing a lot of information during some of these fights along with Smoothie. So that's very impressive for a guy to step right into the LCS with 4 veteran guys and already have a pretty established voice in the communication. So good start for him.
Yeah, and I think another, if we want to keep giving some praise to Cloud9 to convince you guys otherwise.
They're a good team, man.
I want to give a shout out to the coaching staff and Reaper, because the draft pick into Malzahar of taking Zillion is quite a strong choice. I think that is a really great counter pick up there, and I think one that Jensen showed a lot of skill on and was really key in their victory. So I think I really want to give them a good thumbs up for that.
A good thumbs up.
Not the bad types.
Strong.
Good types.
See it through. The Shrimper, do you think Teddy is now the best AD carry or even player in the LCK? His veins out of this world.
Yeah, there's a different way to handle this, and I think that if you look at what Papa Smithy said, is that the best way to look at it is Faker until the end of time is the best player on the planet. Until proven otherwise, he's the best player on the planet.
So you're looking at second.
But you can talk about the best performing player on the planet right now currently, and that absolutely is Teddy, in my opinion. Teddy is just popping off like crazy. Every game I watch with Jin Air, it's just the Teddy show. Teddy is so far ahead in CS and absolutely coming through in the team fight kills. Teddy right now is your best player in the LCK and best performing player in the world. In the world.
In the world, that's quite...
This world. Oh, not Mars, not Venus,
Listen,
this world.
League of Legends is played on multiple planets, so it's key that we're seeing that.
Well, if China has 25 servers, I can only imagine the servers on Mars and Jupiter and Venus.
Don't forget Pluto. It may be a dwarf planet, but they still play League of Legends.
A dwarf server? Is that a thing?
That's a thing.
Sure. It is.
You'll be seeing Teddy on SKT in 2018 summer. Josh Herrera, I can see C9 going 4-0, Echo going 3-1, and TSM 0-4. Ooh. I actually think Optic is really underrated. I see them breaking even 2-2.
See, Optic, again, is one of those hard teams, right? Because they haven't shown exactly enough for me to ever feel confident in picking them to be, an upset character or even getting a win type of thing. But when you do look at them, yeah, there was some fight, and especially in that Team Liquid game. They did really push up against a team that has been working together for quite a long time and a team that is expected to be at the very top level of North America. So I think there are good signs to see there. And again, I would take to heart the words from Acadian and Power of Evil that this commitment to working harder than anyone else in the NA LCS, I think this is a team that is going to be really grinding it out, trying to improve. Whether that actually does have results, we'll have to see. But I think that this is a team that could have that upside that someone, our viewer, is really talking about here.
Yeah, I think they have looked better. Again, it's through 1 week, so take that with a grain of salt. They look better than I expected them to coming into this split. I feel like TSM's at least going to go 1-1, and if they're going to lose, it'll probably be 2 Echo Fox. I think they will beat Optic. I think it'll be a close game. There's no way TSM is dumpstering anyone right now. I don't think they have the capability to turn the switch around like that. But, I mean, I give Optic more of a chance than I thought I would have.
Yeah, when I look at Optic, the only thing that really does give me kind of some pause, and I'm thinking about the other rosters here, is maybe Zig in the top lane. I don't quite think that Zig is necessarily strong enough to hold on his own the way that someone like Haunter, Flame, Impact, and then even recently Licorice has shown us that they can do in the top lane. I feel like Ziggs is a step below that. And even when you're having a bot lane like Arrow and Lemonation, who was already looked at as one of the weaker ones, but has shown some signs of life here early, I think that's where I'm looking at a problem for Optic, is the top lane, somewhere that might be an improvement zone.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple more questions we can fire through quickly. Unicorns need to double down on being a meme team and get fans that way. They basically are doing that. Even with Romain out.
They lost Romain. That was the meme.
They're wearing weird unicorn outfits, but it's not Romain. It's not the same.
It's not the same.
You got to find a new game. That was a triple rhyme, by the way.
Hey, Cloud9's the meme team, all right?
Yeah, well,
you guys love Cloud9. Come on, let's stick up some love for the meme team.
Mario Mojica, do you think moving to LA is affecting Febiven's play? Maybe he needs time to adjust to living in LA. Maybe he's having too much fun outside the game.
Possible. Hey, maybe he's eating too much. You never know. These guys,
there's a lot of stuff to eat in LA.
All you hear when they get over there is how great Uber Eats is, DoorDash, all those type of delivery services to get. They seem to love it. Sven was talking about you get Donair, 2 a.m. in LA. It's crazy.
What a life.
Might be a reason why they're not performing so well, but we'll see.
Patrick Mandak, will G2 and SKT be good enough to be in semifinals at Worlds? That's pretty far away. This current roster of G2 and Iteration, semifinals, I don't think so. They look pretty decent, but SKT, I feel like there's going to be some big changes coming into summer, and I always expect SKT to be at semifinals at Worlds. So SKT, yes, G2, no.
I feel like saying G2 in the semifinals is quite a jump ahead. I think saying G2 making Worlds, making 8 out of groups, more than possible, very plausible. But and when you bring up SKT, that's the question, right? How many roster changes are going to be happening at that point? But I will, even with this roster right now, I would tell you, yes, SKT would make it to the semifinals based off purely Faker. Faker carried them through semifinals to finals this year. He's already done it before. That 5-game series of Galio against RNG, this guy has done it already. He would do it again. SKT will be in the semifinals this year, no matter what.
Unless they miss Worlds.
Yeah.
Then they probably won't be.
Unless in some way they get Teddy. And they win.
There you go.
They win everything. Teddy carry.
Teddy in there. Legacy Flame, with respect to Sven Skaren's recent comments regarding TSM's former treatment of him, would you say that the new atmosphere for Mike Young is causing struggles? So Sven basically said it's a much more relaxed environment in Cloud9 when they go over VODs from games or, different things, mistakes from games. It's a lot less intense, I guess. Is kind of what it sounds like. Players are more open to speak, whereas with TSM, it was almost like you're being scolded. when you make mistakes.
Yeah,
that's how I interpreted it.
From what I understood, is kind of kind of the name that seems to come up a lot for the mentality and feel around TSM is Bjergsen, and how he likes to treat practice and how hard he wants to work at it. That I think that some of that leaks out, and you end up arguing over jungle path timing to your red buff 8 minutes into the game or something like that, where you're talking about it and Bjergsen's trying to get a point across maybe, and it's like, this is maybe not the best time, maybe not the best use of our time to be arguing about this. Maybe we should be talking about this moment at Dragon or something like that.
Right.
And that seemed to be where Svenskeren would say, TSM would say, no, we need to zero in and focus on this one mistake before we move on. And maybe Cloud9 is willing to overlook some of these smaller ones and focus on the actual heart of the issue. Could be the differences in the practice regiments that they have. And I think when you're talking about, is this something that could stall out Mike Young, I think that Mike Young is a very intelligent player and someone who would benefit from this type of investigation into the play as far as the performance and even in these scrim games. And I think it's something that he can use. But again, it's only to a certain level, right? At some point, this is obviously going to be a detriment to any player. So it's a really, finding that middle ground.
Absolutely. All right. Last question. After week 1, who's your new top team for NA, EU, LCK, and LPL? I'll start with LPL because that's the one I know the least. I know RNG just dropped the set, their first set of the split, but I still feel like they are the strongest team in the LPL right now. Xiaohu looks fantastic. They're not even playing Uzi in these games, and they still look that dominant. So I'm looking for RNG. They got MLXG and Karsa. That roster's stacked.
Yeah, it's RNG. RNG is the LPL team at the very top. They're the premier one. They are the guys to beat there. LCK right now, I'd probably say KSV.
They look unstoppable.
And the only other team maybe that's and I was going to say this probably before Monday night, but Afrika Freaks was looking pretty strong heading into this week.
Destroyed.
Does not so much anymore. Kingzone X looking better. So that would probably be the top 2 if you're going to say if you can't pick one of them in Korea. NA LCS right now, for me, it's going to be Team Liquid, I think, is shown the most.
I think you have to after that performance against TSM. Just
Echo Fox is the team I want to buy the most of. I think that they're going to be a hot
Fox
team.
Stock?
I'm in on it. I'm in with Rick Fox, but I think that right now, top of North America is Team Liquid. And then how can you argue in EU? Vitality, 2-0. The kids.
I'll argue Vitality right now. I think it's still G2. Vitality hasn't played any of the top teams. I think they might go 0-2 this week, which isn't a knock on them. I still think they can make playoffs, but I think G2 or Misfits are the best.
I'm buying into Vitality. I don't think they're the best team by any stretch by the end of the split. Right now, hard to argue with the numbers.
It's true. It's hard to argue. Thank you very much for all the questions. As always, we appreciate them, love answering them, love hearing from you guys. That's all the time we got for today, but before we're heading out of here, we got to shout out our best friends and yours from DX Racer. Oof. And if you use the promo code SHOTCALLERS at dxracer.com, you get 15% off. You can enjoy all the LCS games leaning back in a DX Racer chair with perfect posture.
Hey, that's valuable.
That's
perfect posture. People pay a lot of money for that type of stuff. And hey, guess what? You could do it by just getting a DX Racer chair and watching or playing League of Legends.
People have been telling me on the street.
That's like 2 birds, 1 stone, right?
2 birds and 1 stone. People have been telling me on the street my posture looks a lot better. My spine looks straighter than ever. Hey. It was very weird people come up to you and say that.
That's a strange thing for people to say.
It's a very strange thing. That's all the time we got for 5v5 live today. LCS games get started on Friday. We will be back on Monday for Get Boosted. We'll give you our power rankings for week 2. I expect them to fluctuate quite a bit in these early weeks when there's not many games to go off of. So expect some movement in those games.
You better be there to see it.
You better be there. Other than that, enjoy the LCS games this weekend. I'm Eric Kummel here with Mark Horner, and thank you very much for watching.